I want to start off this episode
Okay.
with two news stories that were designed specifically for us here at the office.
For me?
I got to believe that both of these news stories, really just like happenstances in the news, were designed to catch our eye and be featured in our show. I don't know who else they're for, if not us.
Exactly. I mean, I'll have to hear it. I'll be the judge of that.
The first one is an article from Fox News.
No.
And this is on a news story that we've touched on before, the Desantis Newsom debate that's coming up very quickly that will be live streaming, of course, next Thursday.
Tomorrow if you're a Wednesday weenie.
Exactly. But I'll just start off with the headline. It's kind of just details on the debate, but I thought it was
it's eye-opening.
It's something that I didn't think was going to be real, and now it's real. You know what I'm saying?
Like the debate in of itself?
Yeah. It's one of the things that I felt like is like, it's probably going to get canceled. Like, no way this actually happens. But now that it's happening, it's like, oh my God.
I wouldn't be surprised if it got canceled like the night before or something.
Oh, cold feet DeSantis,
That's
cold
what
feet.
I'm saying, little tiny cold feet for a tiny cold man.
So the headline is, Fox News' groundbreaking DeSantis Newsom debate quickly approaches as 2024 political drama looms. First of all, crazy glazing for yourself.
I'm saying.
Just topping yourself up in the headline there.
Our amazing, phenomenal, groundbreaking report.
And then right under the headline, the political showdown will be moderated by Sean Hannity Thursday, November 30th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
Moderated by Sean?
Moderated by Sean Hannity.
That's right, because it's a 2v1.
Yeah, it's moderated by Sean Hannity, and it's DeSantis versus Newsom, but it's basically, going to be a 2v1.
Okay.
And the article says here, Fox News' groundbreaking debate, again, just glazing yourself up for like, you don't got to do all that, between Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis and California Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom is quickly approaching. Then it goes on to say, as a part of a 2-hour Hannity special, Fox News' Sean Hannity will be moderating a 90-minute debate in Alpharetta, Georgia, which has emerged as a critical swing state in recent election cycles. And see, this is the part that makes me laugh a little bit, right? Is like, okay, they're hosting it in Georgia, which is a swing state. But the key component here is Gavin Newsom isn't a candidate for president.
Yeah.
It's just Ron DeSantis. And this, again, brings me back to the critique that Gavin Newsom has only things to gain here, especially if he wants to run for president in the future. He only has prominence to gain by, like, taking Ron DeSantis down a peg. And DeSantis only has things to lose because even if he does well in this debate, it doesn't do anything to place him closer to or even above Donald Trump in the primary polls.
Gavin's not even up for re-election this cycle.
No. I don't think so, at least. I'm pretty sure he got elected in 22, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
There was the whole recall thing, and then,
Like, there's no reason to do this from Ron DeSantis' side, but it seems like he's going to. It seems planned.
Like, what are his staffers thinking? What are the people around him? What are the political strategists that he's hired and is paying money to thinking about this right now?
I don't know.
What possible talking points could he come through? It's gonna have to be 90 minutes on the border.
Well, here's the thing: is I think, ironically, or perhaps I don't even know. Like, it kind of makes me a little sad to say this, but I feel like this might be the most substantive debate we get out of this primary season. Because there's going to be no crowd, no audience, so there's not going to be clapping to interrupt anybody, so they just get to talk. No interruptions.
3 guys being dudes in a room.
3 white dudes talking.
Nice.
And it says Hannity will press them on key issues including the economy and inflation, immigration and the border, and crime. So it seems like covering kind of a range of issues.
Like 30 minutes on each, I can imagine. Crime, a big one, because you're going against California. Conservatives think he's Mr. Crime, letting everything run rampant in L.A., looting, whatnot. Still, what is he going to gain?
I don't know, but even before we learn like what Ron DeSantis' talking points will be, I've seen Gavin Newsom like debate Sean Hannity before. A couple of months ago, Sean Hannity had Gavin Newsom come on, and Gavin Newsom basically steamrolled him, talking about crime statistics, the economy, so on and so forth. And we already know the cases like red states are reliant on government or on federal funding more than blue states are. We know blue states are where all the economic growth and GDP growth is centered. Like, obviously, the argument economically is always in favor of blue states. I don't know what the arguments will be here, though, and this is why I feel like Ron DeSantis is just going to get crushed, and there's no reason for him to do this.
And it's like, what, Hannity's going to have to give him some massive layups, some massive moderator bias in this debate for him to gain 2 percentage points.
Yeah, it's a 2v1.
To go from like 9% to 11%.
Maybe
in the poll. Maybe he'll lose
because it's not necessarily confirmed that the same people that are on the fence in the GOP electorate are the ones that are going to be watching this and then having their decision informed by if DeSantis performs well in this niche debate against Gavin Newsom, someone who's not running for president.
Yeah, it's going to be what the clips that go viral from it, which I imagine are going to be Gavin Newsom kind of steamrolling DeSantis because he can't orate, like he can't get out there and speak. Even during the actual GOP debates, when he gave his best performance in the last one, he didn't really combat anyone. He just had some phrases that you knew he wrote down beforehand that he was ready to had locked and loaded.
And that scenario is a lot easier to get dunks because like the attention is diffused among all the other candidates, you know? Like you don't need, like even if you fuck up a little bit, there's a bunch of other people that the audience can focus on. But here it's like you or him.
Camera's on you the whole time.
Yeah, like you got to figure. I don't know how he's going to do well in this. I don't think he'll do well in this, but I guess we'll find out next Thursday.
We'll find out. We'll find out, and you can find out during our Head in the Office's groundbreaking coverage of this debate on Thursday night. Come watch it live with us.
8 p.m. Eastern time starting for us, and then 9 p.m. will be the debate. Exactly. I'm guessing, or whenever Hannity wants to start his fucking 2-hour special.
For a groundbreaking, incredibly fun debate pre-show.
Yeah.
That's groundbreaking.
We can make a bingo card for this special event as well, even though it's not a primary debate. But the last news, extra piece of fun news story that was designed specifically for us is actually a clip from Fox News.
Oh.
I thought this was especially humorous.
Okay.
It brings up the sort of war on Christmas debate once again, which I was wondering where it had been.
Well, of course, because really the night of Thanksgiving, the day after, is when all of that rhetoric starts, because that's when Christmas starts.
And you see, I'm really tempted to press the pink button on our soundboard and initiate a Beyond Parody section. But honestly, this really isn't Beyond Parody. This is almost just one for one what they always say this time of year.
I know it all too well.
Yeah, like you could probably predict what this is about to be about, especially given all the fiascos with like Target and the bathing suit stuff earlier in the year. But this is a clip from Jesse Waters.
Okay.
Only about 20 seconds long. I figure we could take a listen here on the show live.
Gay Nutcracker. Complete with a rainbow hat, a trans flag. Full price, $12. But right now it's on sale for $8.
Wait.
Target also sells Santa ornaments, but Target's Santa is in a wheelchair and is black.
If you pause when he's talking about, well, either of them, the gay Nutcracker or the black disabled Santa, there's other options right next to them that either aren't gay or aren't black and disabled. You can see it's just one option among many, because the whole thing here is that companies haven't gone woke. They're not trying to indoctrinate the kids or make white people feel bad. They've just recognized that they can get more products moved if they appeal to diverse audiences.
Yeah, white Santa is still right there, front and center. Let me tell you, the regular Nutcracker, however, I'd be hard pressed to say that the Nutcracker isn't gay in of itself, but
I was about to say Nutcracker's already gay. Not gonna elaborate.
Come on now, that's crazy. I feel like I was set up for failure with gay Nutcracker. $12.99 now $8.99. It's on sale. That's cunty.
Yeah, you can, but it's like you can hear it in his voice that he doesn't really care. It's almost like the Tucker Carlson gay M&Ms thing.
Yeah,
like he knows he's just kind of checking the boxes on a list around the same time of year where he needs to fearmonger or just I don't know what rage bait on social issues around Christmas. When, to be honest, this isn't even war on Christmas rhetoric.
Yeah.
This is straight up pro-Christmas merchandise on the shelves.
It's more Christmas for more people.
Exactly.
Isn't that what you want? It's none of the happy holidays bullshit. It's more Christmas.
Jesse Waters later had some woman come on to like guest, like a guest appearance on the show or whatever. Yeah. And she was like, this has simply gone too far. The pendulum has swung too far. This just isn't representative of the country. It's like, what are you talking about?
Well, they made the Nutcracker gay now.
Like Black Santa's been a thing for as long as I've been alive. And I'm going to assume because I keep seeing it, that means people are buying them. You know what I mean? So what?
I think I've also heard this discourse around Black Santa for my entire life.
Yes.
Anytime a Black Santa is available, it's just everyone's up in arms about it.
Yeah, it's like Santa's not black. Santa not real. Famously, Santa not real. Santa could be whatever the companies want him to be.
Yeah, but it's really not scientifically accurate. Like if you think about it, he lives in the North Pole. There's not a lot of sun over there.
And there is something to be said for how problematic this sort of fake progressivism is from companies. Like Target obviously doesn't really care about progressive politics. They don't actually care about real diversity and inclusion measures. But the thing is, like, so long as we're going to live in a consumerist capitalist society, I'd rather gay people, black people, minority groups be accepted rather than them be excluded. I feel like if those are the two options right now, I'd rather them not be excluded from society. I think public acceptance is better, and that's going to translate into marketing and merchandise, of course. That's all it is. It's not them trying to turn the kids gay. Never has been.
Oh, my God, that's good. That's good. I don't know if a child is ever going to walk upon a rainbow flag nutcracker and think, you know,
this is gayer than it was before. Like, I don't think it's already there. You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not going to elaborate. There's no argument that needs to be made.
You all know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You all know what we're talking about. And I mean, while we're on the topic of gay things and grooming, I think I can hit you with a little surprise.
Oh, a surprise?
A surprise, a little story that I found.
Not a surprise.
Do you remember the group Moms for Liberty?
Yes.
You remember how their whole shtick
Aren't they big on like showing up to school council meetings?
Yeah.
And like kind of doing like stochastic terrorism?
That and like huge on book bans.
Yes.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Huge on any semblance of anything being gay is grooming.
Well, woke liberals are indoctrinating students and turning them gay in classrooms.
Exactly. And I guess while we're on the topic of Moms for Liberty and grooming, some interesting information recently came out. And according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, Philip Fisher Jr., a pastor and local Republican ward leader who volunteered at Moms for Liberty's National Summit in Philadelphia this year, pleaded guilty in 2012 to a charge of aggravated sexual abuse involving a 14-year-old boy when he was 25 and living in Chicago.
Every accusation is an admission.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh my God, pedocon theory is 100% true. The same people that are going on and on about grooming taking place in schools is actually just doing the grooming. Takes one to know one.
Takes one to know one. That's what I was saying. And it's nuts because this week, part of my preparation every week is scrolling through the top posts of the week, like sort by top this week on r/conservative. And they were going crazy about like some Democrat mayor who just got convicted of, I think, child pornography charges.
Okay.
Obviously wrong, obviously evil, obviously bad. I talk about it. But they always bring it up in the context of, oh, why doesn't this get more attention? Because he's not the guy that's making a whole stink about anything to do with the rainbow being grimy. He's not the one making these accusations and throwing them around all the time at anything in culture.
There's no hypocrisy here.
Exactly. It's just kind of guy does crime, which is very bad. Don't get me wrong. But with this, it's guy does the crime that he constantly goes on and vilifies other people who didn't do the crime.
Yeah.
What's going on?
What was Moms for Liberty's excuse here? Was it just like, well, the problem isn't that he did pedophilia, it's that it was gay pedophilia?
I have no idea, actually.
Because that's the type of shit Matt Walsh is on. It's like, obviously, that's not what the problem is.
Well, Matt Walsh, famous for coming out here and saying, well, 16-year-olds is really when, really when people are in their prime.
Oh, my God, dog. That's so awesome.
That's what I thought. I thought that would be a good little story.
Moms for Liberty's been going through it, too. They just got washed in the election. Like, all of their candidates lost in 2023.
Hell yeah.
Which is sick, because it's just like the evil group, you know what I mean? It's like evil nonprofit.
Evil doesn't take power. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Maybe 1 million moms can come up and take their place.
Ooh, maybe.
These moms groups are really just competing for who can be the most anti-LGBTQ, anti-gay, whatever, evil.
Yeah, it's just like fascist versus fascist. Who can win?
It's sick.
Looks like Moms for Liberty's falling behind. They're getting outed as pedophiles. Nice. Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. Top of the episode, as we mentioned in the cold open, we're going to be live once again. This time, not even covering a primary debate. Just a fun little excursion for us.
A fun little side debate, a little side quest that Ron DeSantis is going to choose to go on in his hardcore run of this election cycle and have his game ended.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a really good time. It's a side quest for us as well, but it's still, of course, political discourse because we can't get away from it.
I'm a whore for it.
Yeah. That's Thursday, November 30th, 9 p.m. Eastern time is when the debate starts. We'll be live 8 p.m. Eastern time, chatting you guys up because that's what we do.
Chatting up,
serving up discourse.
Come through, hanging out with everyone in the chat, making funny political bingo cards.
Yeah.
Who's not down for that?
Now, before we get into the show, I will remind you all that right now, for like one more week, Hiddo merch is 15% off if you use the code pregame15.
What can we say?
And if you want to get your family a gift, if you want to support the show, if you want to look good,
Look good, look stylish, look cool.
Especially after the new year, going back to school, you got to look like you got some new clothes, right? Head over to headintheoffice.com. Get yourself some merch, and that also supports the show at the same time. I'd be very appreciative of it.
Let everyone know that you're a fan of the #1 geopolitical podcast, especially in these tumultuous geopolitical times.
Yeah, trying times.
Come on. How else will people know that you stay informed unless you're wearing the shirt that says that you watch the #1 geopolitical podcast?
How else will we know that you care?
Make it make sense now.
Yeah. You can also support the show by becoming a patron, patreon.com/headintheofficepod. Of course, follow us on all social media. It's always in the description. And we have one Apple review to read today. Yes. That's the final way you can support the show. Leave a 5-star review on Apple.
Completely for free.
And we'll read it. We read them every week so long as we have them. And Gage doesn't cry over his Cheerios when he checks in the morning. But this week we have just one on Apple. It is from Cats Are Protein, from title The Best Podcast. They say, I'm a trans woman in Florida, and most of my family is Republican or worse, libertarian. Last year, my grandmother got my great-grandfather a beer cooler that says, I identify as water. That's rough. That's real rough.
Man, that's actually so cool, though.
This podcast has helped keep me sane, and in the year I've been listening, there's not been a single bad take. Thank you for making such an amazing podcast that helps to fuel my desire to make the world a better place. Well, thank you, and sorry for stumbling through that. I guess I can't read today.
Incredible immaculate cosign on the never been a bad take portion of that debate. But I do want to remind you all that say you have maybe, I don't know, an Android, or you live in Canada and we can't see your app reviews, or anywhere else abroad, you can drop the review on our Instagram. We don't discriminate, just like Randy Monica Jr. did. He said, I don't have an iPhone to review an Apple podcast or whatever it's called, so please accept this 5-star review via Instagram.
Oh, that's very kind.
Yeah. There you go.
Most of the time, I'll read them off Instagram, but if I see it, I'll probably forget. Especially if it's early in the week. Message us like Friday.
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes, ideally, if you're going to send an Instagram review, send it like Saturday night, because I like to screenshot
make sure it's Gage that reads it.
I like to screenshot them. If it's not in the front of my camera roll, that shit is gone.
Yeah. Well, thank you for those 5-star reviews. If you want yours read, you know where to go. I guess we could start off with some geopolitical news.
Well, that's what we do.
We are going to get into some Israel and Palestine updates, although I did want to talk real quickly about Argentina. They just elected a new president. A lot of people have been talking about it, not even in the show notes. I just figured we could, it's not really, I guess it is big news for a couple of reasons, but really it's just like they had another election. They elected a dude who's basically a fascist, but it's like their version of Donald Trump, really.
Nice. He's like a big libertarian guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he calls himself an anarcho-capitalist.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's a Redditor, basically.
Take him to Coconut Island.
His name is Javier Milei, I believe. And he did this thing which a lot of like liberal media was picking up on. He said he's going to take a chainsaw to the administrative state, and he dressed up at one point, I think, doing like a Denji cosplay from
Chainsaw Man,
nice. Which makes me think that he missed like the major themes of the show, being an anarcho-capitalist.
Oh my god!
Did you miss what motivates Denji in the beginning of the show to do what he does?
The first episode, the first chapter, even if you're a reader, where he's, I don't know, the poorest guy.
Yeah, feels like he missed a component there. But anyway, yeah, he's like a sort of fascist candidate that won. I don't know a ton about the structure of Argentinian elections, but he was running against I'll say historically corrupt party, the sort of neoliberal right that was losing a lot of steam in the same way that like Hillary Clinton was a part of the sort of neoliberal center-left, center-right. And he won in much the same way that Hillary Clinton lost, right? He won because the candidates he was running against, a lot of people felt alienated from.
Failed to inspire the populace.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's the new president of Argentina, much in the same way that Trump became the president here. And I've seen a couple of lines of analysis. Two of them specifically I think are important. The first one, though, I think isn't necessarily correct. So Latin America has a long history of dictators being propped up, usually being propped up by the United States and the West because they serve our sort of economic machinations and what we intend to accomplish, certainly during the Cold War. And a lot of people, at least some people, have been saying that he's a fascist of that variety, but I don't think that analysis is correct because back during the Cold War, the United States propped up a lot of fascists specifically because they were amenable to U.S. business interests. Our businesses wanted to strip mine Latin American countries for all the resources they had and the cheap labor that they had. And in order to do so, we needed to either get them out of the sphere of influence of the Soviet Union or most of the time just cut off any progressive reforms that they were trying to do. See Guatemala trying to do land reform after the United Fruit Company was kicked out, or Nicaragua, etc. But I don't think he's that kind of fascist, specifically because if he is, I think he's kind of like in the wrong time period. But I don't think he is because the United States doesn't really need to do that anymore. You may have noticed,
in like Argentina.
Yeah, the Cold War. The Cold War has ended. The Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. There's no structural incentive for the United States to partner with fascists like him at this time because the capitalist world order already exists, right? Like the United States is the hegemon. Capitalism is now a globalized system. There's no need for us to partner with fascists. In fact, I think he's at this point more of a liability for someone like Biden because if he sees himself paired with Milei, then it kind of just makes him look bad.
Yeah.
We don't need fascists like that to strip mine countries anymore. We're much more focused on neo-imperialism, economic imperialism, and strip mining countries using groups like the IMF, the World Trade Organization, etc. And I think the more correct version of analysis is that much like Trump, much like Viktor Orban or fascist candidates that we've seen rise up in France, I think he is more so a product of neoliberal policies and austerity that have generated a lot of vulnerability and isolation and alienation from typical neoliberal candidates.
Yeah.
It's the same reason Donald Trump won, right? It's like people felt disillusioned with the U.S. political system because we'd been failing for so long because of neoliberal austerity politics. And I think that's the reason he rose to power, because Argentina has horrible inflation, much worse than anything the United States has experienced. Argentina has been going through a lot of economic issues. And because of neoliberal politics and political corruption, a lot of people were driven away from the mainstream options and chose him instead. And I think that's the correct mode of analysis for this guy.
Doesn't Argentina have like a crazy cycle of like nutty economic boom and then insane disastrous collapse just all the time?
And the thing is like I think there was one point that a lot of people I think on the right have pointed to where it's like, well, at one point the GDP for Argentina was like per capita dwarfing the United States. And it's like, okay, but where was the economic development going?
Yeah.
It wasn't evenly distributed, much like in the U.S., GDP super high, growing year over year, but it's not evenly distributed. It's not necessarily a measure of how well people are doing. And now this guy is promising to like dollarize his economy, which is a whole complicated subject that probably isn't going to go very well for Argentina.
Dollarize as in get away from like fractional reserve banking, like gold standard?
No, they want to, I think they've already done this. They're getting rid of the Argentinian peso and they're going to use USD.
Oh, like, dollarize.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Like they're purchasing USD to use for their economy now, which is probably good for U.S. businesses and the United States as a whole because more of our currency is flowing.
I guess.
I don't think it's going to work for them, though, because it's our currency. Like, we control every part of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. But their economy's been up and down. But much like a lot of Latin American countries, even if you don't know a ton about like Argentina specifically, I mean, we've been controlling them and dominating them for more than 70 years at this point. And so it's like it's not a surprise to see a candidate like this again compare him to Donald Trump or Viktor Orban, et cetera, that rises to power as a result of neoliberal policies that have left people behind. Once again, materialist analysis is always going to go further than anything else. And once again, because there's no real left wing, at least from what I know in Argentina and other countries like the United States, the right wing can kind of adopt populist rhetoric and then just do all the same things, if not do worse things than typical neoliberals will. Because he's promised to he's like very anti-LGBTQ. You said something before we quoted about
one of the only videos I saw of him. I don't know much about this issue. One of the only things I saw from him this week was a video of him with like a bunch of different ministries on a board, and he's like, "Oh, ministry for women, fucking gone. Ministry for minorities and equal rights, fucking gone. Ministry for poor people, gone."
Yeah, and that's like, of course he's doing that. That's like the cultural fascist thing to do now, and I think that's sort of been exported by the United States in a way, because that's become like anti-trans rhetoric, anti-LGBTQ rhetoric as a whole has grown extensively since Donald Trump got elected, for sure. And I think like he's saying all this stuff and he might even accomplish a lot of this stuff. Like maybe he will axe a bunch of departments, but realistically, Argentina isn't a huge economy and obviously they're struggling as well. I don't think that they can really do much to get away from like, institutions like the IMF or the World Trade Organization or the World Bank, et cetera. Like again, the United States capitalist global system has already firmly been established. There's nowhere most countries can go unless they have the oligarchs of their own, like China does, to kind of push back or escape what the United States wants them to do, especially if you're in Latin America, where the history there is so rife with just the United States dominating you and, sending death squads into your country if you don't act the right way.
Huh.
I don't know I don't think that he's going to be able to accomplish much or do much different than like the neoliberals of before did.
I mean, especially if his policy prescriptions are gut the government, zero regulation, do whatever you want. I love a business for the sake of business.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, and I think when he got elected or beforehand, he was like, I hate the IMF, which is like fair. The IMF is a horrible organization. They'll come into impoverished countries and say like, we'll give you loans, but you have to do this, 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 and this. And then it ends up with all the money flying out of your country to wealthy oligarchs and you are in debt.
We'll give you loans, but you have to buy U.S. contractors to service these needs.
Yeah. And like, it's fair. Most countries on the periphery or semi-periphery are going to hate the IMF for good reason. But I don't know what Argentina can do to get away from this with a right-wing fascist in charge.
With an unserious candidate.
Yes.
Because everything about this guy has just been so incredibly unserious.
Yeah.
It's good. Again, Coconut Island, anarcho-capitalist. It doesn't work.
Yeah. So if you were looking for our analysis of Javier Milei, there you go.
There we go.
I don't think it'll be very good. It's my analysis. Moving on to Israel and Palestine, though.
Yes.
Much more news here. And similarly, not very good.
All pretty much bad.
We've got a sprinkle of news directly from Israel. And we've got a sprinkle of news that has to do with Israel, but it's domestic politics. So kind of a mixed bag here, none of which is good. Either you're reaching your hand into the bag, it's getting cut up either way. You know what I'm saying? So we are the number one geopolitical podcast, of course, and we've got updates on Israel. The major piece of news from the last week or so is that hostages have been steadily released by Hamas during what's being called a temporary ceasefire.
It's like a 4-day ceasefire, right?
Yeah. By the time this episode comes out, I think it'll probably be over unless it's extended. It began on Friday of last week after some negotiation, and like you said, only slated to last about 4 days. Before you get too excited about this diplomatic breakthrough, though, Netanyahu himself has already said, quote, I want to be clear. This war is continuing. This war is continuing. We will continue until we have achieved all of our goals.
Man, he is being very clear.
Bloodthirsty.
I don't even think there was any ambiguity beforehand.
No.
He just had to come out here and let the people of Israel know.
So ostensibly, the deal was reached between Qatar, the United States, and Israel in negotiations that have been happening over the last few weeks. It's kind of unclear to me how much the U.S. was actually involved because Joe Biden's been pledging unequivocal support to Netanyahu so far. He's refused to call for a ceasefire in really any capacity. And it's not clear to me that Joe Biden was pushing so hard for it. He could have been behind the scenes, but like without any evidence to suggest that, I'm not sure.
Wasn't he touting this as kind of like a semi-win? Like he was touting the U.S.'s involvement as like a win. Like, look, we did this.
It could have just been the case that like the U.S.'s name is stamped on it.
We love doing that shit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
We love it.
Qatar, though, you may be wondering why Qatar is involved. At least some of Hamas leadership is stationed in Qatar. They live in Qatar, hence their involvement here. And I did know this fact, but I kept forgetting to bring it up. And it's just another piece that you can use to levy against someone that is like a Zionist or pro-Israel, right? The fact that the IDF continues to bomb Gaza to quote unquote get rid of Hamas while Hamas leadership is in another country entirely is just comically evil to me, right? Yeah. Hamas leadership is in Qatar. You're not getting rid of Hamas by bombing a place where they're not even at. It just reveals to me that it's so unserious and designed to hurt innocent Palestinians. You're not getting rid of Hamas if they're not even in the place that you're bombing.
It's kind of almost like how to get the Saudi that did, like the terrorist attack 9/11, to get the Saudi guy who was hiding in Pakistan. We fought not his terrorist organization, but another one in a different country.
And then we invaded Iraq.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not a mystery. Israel knows.
Yeah.
Like they just negotiated this quote unquote temporary ceasefire that's allowing hostages to get out with Hamas leadership.
When the attack first happened, like one of the Hamas leader guys was in Qatar and he posted like a video.
Yeah.
Like, I'm safe in Qatar.
Like none of it's so obvious to me that Israel doesn't actually care about getting rid of Hamas. The goal isn't to get rid of Hamas. It's just to punish Palestinians because they want the land for themselves. It's an ethno-state project. That's all it really is. So as of November 25th, as of writing this on Saturday, Hamas has released 24 of the 240 hostages they took back on October 6th, or October 7th. Was it the 7th? Is that when they did the attack? And Israel has released 39 Palestinians. The AP reports that the deals for every one Israeli hostage released from Hamas, 3 Palestinians are going to be released from Israel. For those counting, that means 13 Israelis have been released from being held hostage so far.
Yes, I think it's interesting. Further, in keeping with AP's reports, of the Palestinians that were released, 24 of them were women, some of which had been arrested for attempted stabbings. Others were accused of incitement on social media. I'll let you try and figure out what that means. The rest of the released prisoners were teenage boys, most of whom were charged with, quote, stone throwing and, quote, supporting terrorism, a charge that the AP describes themselves as incredibly broad. One of the released teenagers was the son of a UN aid worker who was placed on, quote, administrative detention last year based on secret evidence without formal charges or a trial. And in keeping with this like administrative detention trend and all of Israel's counterterrorism measures, there are 2,200 Palestinians that are placed on this administrative detention as we speak. A lot of those, no trial, no formal charges at all have been brought to them, and secret evidence.
You know, there's a word I would use for being held kind of unjustly. It doesn't, I don't know. It's just not coming to my mind.
I can't think of it either.
I'm glad the Hamas hostages have been released, though. But I just can't think of a word I would use for a group that's being held by someone doing terror against them unjustly. I can't think of the word.
And I mean, like, in keeping with that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I maybe this is a reach, but I feel like this is a massive failure, again, on the propaganda front from Israel, right? Because with the entire world's eyes on you in a high-profile prisoner swap, I feel like releasing from prison, again, a literal child who threw stones isn't the best look. Because, I don't know, maybe why the fuck was that child in prison for throwing stones in the first place?
Well, the stones could have fentanyl in them.
Oh, the stones could have been laced with fentanyl, and they could have made contact with an Israeli soldier's uniform and absorbed into it.
Exactly.
So, you know what? With that, hit the kid with possession. Hit the kid with possession and distribution and the whole gamut, really. But I feel like that kind of just speaks to the destitute conditions that Palestinians are subject to in this in this conflict, in this apartheid in the first place. Because they had an opportunity to, I don't know, at least paint the Palestinians as all murderers, like at least release the people who are in on attempted violence. Not the kids who didn't fucking do anything.
Yeah, that's crazy. And it's like stone throwing, right? It's obviously an insane thing to be jailed for, but they've done worse to people that have thrown stones.
Killed kids that have thrown stones at IDF soldiers. Like, come on now.
Like, throwing stones is this insane act of terror against actual soldiers that were trained in fucking Long Island, New York. I don't know. It's just such nonsense, and I think this definitely reveals it.
It's so ridiculous because, like, even continuing with the Palestinians that Israel is willing to release, they have a list. There is a list of 300 people that they're considering for this release, and among those, the crimes that landed these people in prison vary from threatening security officers to leaving the Gaza Strip and entering Israel without a permit.
That's crazy.
Tell me that is not apartheid. Tell me that's not literally an apartheid state. You're not allowed to leave.
You can't leave the cage we put you in.
Tell me that's not an open-air prison that landed you in prison and, maybe we'll do a hostage swap.
Yeah,
because that's what it is.
And it's kind of, it's along the lines of like conservatives that are like, well, technically every illegal immigrant broke the law because they crossed the border illegally.
I mean,
it's like, well, this Palestinian broke the law. They shouldn't have left Gaza, so they're in jail now. It's like, no, obviously, like the laws set up here are unfair and unjust. That's the critique. Yeah. Overall, though, any cessation of death is good news.
Yes.
But the and getting hostages out, of course, is good news as well. But it seems to me more like the humanitarian pause they've been talking about than anything else. Maybe it serves the purpose in their eyes of like quelling the domestic dissent that's been going on and protests that have been happening around the world, because it's like, look, we did a ceasefire. This is what you wanted, right?
And I know part of the negotiation, part of the deal for this ceasefire is that they're going to allow some like 34,000 gallons of fuel to get in a day. They're going to allow shelter equipment. They're going to allow like humanitarian aid to flow into Gaza during this. But I really fail to see the point in doing that beyond the optics of it when you're just going to start bombing them again in 4 days.
Yeah, that's kind of my take too, is like, okay, and I think strikes have still been happening, by the way. I don't think they've totally stopped from what I've seen.
Yeah, 100%. And it's even like you're going to announce a ceasefire and then go and kill, I think, 100 some odd civilians in northern Gaza a couple days before it actually starts.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, you did a ceasefire. Say they weren't launching any missiles whatsoever during this four-day period. What are people in Gaza supposed to do? They can't leave into Israel, obviously. Like, that's not allowed.
They just wait.
What do they just, I don't know, try to clear bodies out of the rubble? Like, what else are they supposed to be doing for 4 days?
Maybe there's more time to flee from the north to the south, but people who have been fleeing from the north to the south have been struck. Like, not necessarily during the ceasefire, even though I have seen some people saying yes, but still. Like,
yeah, what are you supposed to do?
There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So that's the news on the ceasefire. That's probably going to be done by the time you all listen to this, especially if you're a Wednesday Weenie listener. But that's not the only news on Israel that we need to discuss. We've got some domestic Israel-related news that needs some of that classic Hiddo analysis.
Always.
So some progressives in Congress have been, both in the House and the Senate, have been calling for conditions to be set on the military aid package for Israel that's working its way through the government. These are folks like Bernie Sanders, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, the classic progressives. This happens, of course, as more Democrats have begun calling for a ceasefire, not anywhere near a majority, mind you.
No, nowhere near.
It's still
a handful.
It's still a small group of people calling for a ceasefire, but more over time have been calling for a ceasefire and some conditions to be set on the aid that's going to end up going to Israel.
Which is just like, I feel like at the bare minimum, when you're sending money for people to buy weapons to wage war with, at the very least, there should be some conditions on that aid. You shouldn't just let people unconditionally wage war on a group and other people, unconditionally kill other people. It's kind of like with the Ukraine cluster bomb situation. Like, whenever you're giving money to people to kill people, you better make sure they're doing it in the right ways, if there is any.
Yeah, that's the thing here is, like, it's unimaginable to me that we would give a blank check to really anybody, especially while there's a conflict ongoing. There's like an attempted genocide ongoing, right? Biden has asked already we've talked about this a couple of weeks ago, for the $14 billion in aid for Israel that he wants to give them for military purposes. But if we aren't conditioning this, at least on like not committing war crimes, what's the point? Like, we're just giving them a blank check to do whatever they want with. Like, Democrats, of course, aren't great on the issue of Israel, but I feel like the bare minimum is just saying, like, all right, you're going to use taxpayer money. You got to not do X, Y, and Z if you actually want to get this.
Yeah.
Like, that's the like, it seems like a no-brainer.
But it's like, again, you do that, and then Netanyahu freaks out and yells at you, and we're really scared of that for some reason.
Well, then it kind of just reveals what he's trying to do,
exactly.
Right? Like, if we say you can't use this funding to, after the conflict, occupy Gaza, you can't use this if you're going to kill more civilians, like, then it just reveals that's what he wants to do.
It's like, whoa, what do you mean I can't do that?
So from Bernie Sanders specifically, I'm pulling from Politico here, says, quote, Sanders issued a statement calling for conditioning U.S. aid to Israel, including by ending what he called indiscriminate bombing, to allow a significant pause in military operations so humanitarian aid could enter Gaza, allowing displaced Gazans to return home, no long-term Israeli reoccupation or blockade of Gaza, an end to settler violence and the expansion in the West Bank, and a commitment to broad peace talks for a two-state solution. Obviously, this is like one step of many thousands towards peace. But it is something. I think Bernie still hasn't called for an actual ceasefire, which is disappointing. But like in a world where we're basically getting nothing already, it is good to see some Democrats like, yeah, we should condition this aid.
I will take this.
Yeah. However, Democrats are not united on this front. If you thought this was just all good news, you're wrong. Moderate and very pro-Israel Democrat Jared Maskowitz had this to say on Twitter. He said, quote, I am absolutely for humanitarian aid to Gaza, but if Bernie Sanders puts political requirements on aid to Israel, I will work in the House to remove those conditions or condition aid to Gaza that requires the removal of Hamas.
Come on, man.
Now, this is obviously nonsense, right? Like, we're talking about conditioning military aid to Israel on the condition that, for example, they don't kill children. I have higher expectations for a democracy than I do a group of people who is being constantly bombed all the time.
Yeah.
And also, like, okay, we're going to condition aid to Gaza on what condition? That Gazans out Hamas? Like, how are they supposed to do that?
I'm sorry, but that's not actionable.
Yeah.
At least the things that Bernie presented are actionable. They're things you can actively work towards with policy because we're dealing with, I don't know, another governmental entity. Like,
yeah, no, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's just like these people are just insane. And obviously, Republicans are 100% against all conditions entirely because they're demons. They want to ensure more and more Palestinians die. More Palestinian children are killed.
Which is so sick because wasn't it Marjorie Taylor Greene that was leading the front on banning cluster bombs from banning Ukraine from being able to use our aid to get cluster bombs?
Broken clock and all that. Yeah. But of course, there's not going to be any Republican that votes for conditions. And it seems like it's only a minority of Democratic senators and members of the House that are going to vote for this. So we'll see if it happens. But the one reason I bring this up, and don't just write it off entirely, is because there's one last pretty big hitch in the plans for getting aid to Israel, and that's that Biden has proposed a bill that includes a couple of things all bundled together. That's funding for Israel so far without conditions, humanitarian aid to Gaza, and then funding for Ukraine and funding for the border all packaged together in one deal. Usually the idea with these is like we put a bunch of stuff together that not everybody wants each individual piece, but there's something for everybody, so enough people vote for it to pass.
Yeah, so we can slip some stuff through that's not exactly the most popular.
But all of this seems pretty controversial and unpopular, like across the board. I don't know who's going to be voting for funding for Ukraine and funding for Israel and humanitarian aid for Gaza. You know what I mean?
It's like the worst combination of things to try and get together. Usually you tack on like $14 billion in Israel to like something else that's a bit more popular, not to some of the most controversial issues of the last year.
Right. Like, okay, you get conditions on aid to Israel. You got progressives, the 30 in the House or whatever, and like 10 in the Senate that wanted conditions. Then Republicans aren't voting for it. Moderate Democrats aren't voting for it. You get funding for Ukraine in there, then Republicans aren't going to vote for it because they've positioned themselves in favor of Russia. You get humanitarian aid to Gaza, and suddenly a bunch of members from
nobody's
AIPAC are like,
for that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know what combination of factors you get into this bill that actually gets a bipartisan majority of people to vote for this. I don't know how it happens.
Maybe that's the 5D chess move that's going on right now. Like we actually don't want to give any aid to Israel, so we're gonna package it with all of this, so no chance of passing.
Oh man, if only. And there's also a clock on this because, as we'll talk about in a little bit, the government's now only funded through January and February. So once we get to past February 2nd, I believe, government can't send money to Israel at all.
That'd be pretty cool. The other things that come along with that, not cool.
Yeah, well, of course.
Cool. But silver linings and shit.
Yeah, there's kind of a timer on this all. So
I guess while we're speaking about, I don't know, people progressing on the issue, individual politicians coming, making more concessions, trying to be a bit better about the genocide that they're culpable in. Politico reports that they were made privy to a circulating memo from President Biden where he wants aides to prepare policy to deliver sanctions and visa bans to, quote, extremist settlers in the West Bank.
Okay.
From the memo, Biden is talking about people who, again, quote, have directly or indirectly engaged in actions or policies that threaten the security or stability of the West Bank, take actions that intimidate civilians in the West Bank with the purpose or effect of forcing displacement actions in the West Bank, or make moves that constitute human rights abuses or violations and actions that significantly obstruct, disrupt, or prevent efforts to achieve a two-state solution. So that's pretty good. However, it's just rhetoric right now. This is just kind of a leaked memo. I want to say it's cool. I like the sentiment, but I can't comment on anything until we see an actual policy prescription moving forward. And even if we do see a policy prescription, based on what he's talking about here, he just wants to levy punishment against individual settlers, which... Okay, they're not U.S. citizens. We can't really do anything about that. I mean, the dude from Long Island, sure, we can tell him not to come back, but I don't think that really does much to solve the issue. We kind of have to couple these individual sanctions with broader sanctions on the state of Israel, which would damage our relationship with them undoubtedly, and I'm not sure Biden's willing to do that. So this might just be kind of empty. Kind of meaningless.
It's like we haven't talked about the West Bank a lot just because Gaza's the area getting, carpet bombed right now.
Yeah.
But the West Bank is also a place where a lot of violence takes place. I saw a headline before getting to the studio where it was something along the lines of like, there was like a dozen or 2 dozen or so attacks just like from settlers in the West Bank that the IDF does nothing about.
Oh, if we want to talk about attacks from settlers and security forces.
It's extreme violence there, yeah.
And security forces in the West Bank. Since, I think, October 7th, 197 Palestinians have been killed by settlers or security forces, and at least 121 Palestinian households have been displaced, which is about 1,100 people.
Yeah.
Since October 7th, like things have ramped up. And to the point you made about how the IDF and the Israeli government does nothing, so what if we sanction these individual people? They have the full faith and backing of the state and the security forces there. The IDF is culpable in pretty much every instance of settler colonialism that goes on. They go, settlers push the bounds of what is Israel's effective territory, illegally, mind you, as every nation, everywhere across the world except Israel recognizes, and then the IDF defends these new settlements. They defend them, they do whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, if you look at maps from like each decade, you can see that the territory that Palestinians occupy, both in where the Gaza Strip is now and where the West Bank is, it's been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking nonstop. Yeah, what does an individual sanction do? Like, dude either just got a new house or new neighbors because he did violence to somebody, right?
Exactly.
Like, what does it do to just not allow him into the U.S. or, you know, take away visa status or whatever?
And it's like, how are we determining these things? Are we waiting to see if these settlers get convicted in Israeli court before we can do anything? Or do we have people whose job it is to find out who's settling to go through? Like, I just feel like it's kind of unrealistic and a non-solution.
If this was one policy as a part of a broader 2-state solution, like, package that we were working on, then, like, yeah, fine, this would make sense. Like, you get punished for doing settler violence, sure. But if this is the only thing, then it doesn't really do anything at all.
Like, at the very least, there needs to be something that happens. There needs to be some punishment at the state level that would discourage the IDF from backing these people up. That would discourage the government from encouraging these settlements.
Right.
Like, that's what would need to happen.
Yeah. I mean, like, Biden will give lip service to a 2-state solution. Basically, every Democrat at this point will give lip service to a 2-state solution. Honestly, ideally, it would be a 1-state solution where, like, they can live together and not kill each other.
Ideally,
as it was before Israel was created as a nation, right?
Yeah.
Like, Jewish people lived in historical Palestine. But I don't see in any near future how that would be possible.
I think a 2-state solution is the most realistic thing that can happen right now. I feel like we're a bit past a point of no return, especially with exactly what's going on. But that doesn't mean I don't think we should aspire to the ideals of a 1-state solution, because we absolutely should. I would rather people live in harmony and not kill each other. But
yeah, honestly, I feel like the best like step forward if Biden was serious about actually solving this problem would just to be one, make sure that Gaza isn't a prison anymore, and just start giving away more land that Palestinians can actually use.
Yeah.
Like, no more being prisoners, no more apartheid state, and give them more land that has been taken from them historically. Give them hope for a better future. Otherwise, Hamas is going to continue to be a political force.
Exactly. And I mean, we're seeing that kind of right now in videos and pictures of prisoners that were released from Israel. They're coming into the West Bank with Hamas flags draped around them. And it's like, obviously, I condemn Hamas. We've been through this bit for the last 2 months. Like, you all know where I stand on that. But I also I can see where they're coming from. You get thrown in prison for throwing a rock at an IDF soldier, just no trial, no formal charges. You're just put on administrative detention for doing that. You see people who there's an Israeli law that I think was just recently passed. It was an amendment to their counterterrorism measure, where now if you are seen consuming terrorist material and identifying with that, you can be thrown in jail now.
Oh, yeah, free speech democracy.
Yeah, so if I consume Osama bin Laden's letter to America and identify with it, then I could be thrown in jail. Say I am a Palestinian in
Only
Israel.
Democracy in the Middle East, right?
It's the only democracy. You see all these things, and this is what I mean when I say these complex sociological machinations that allow for support for Hamas to happen. Obviously, it's bad. Obviously, it's not good. But what do you think is going to happen when you're throwing kids in jail for nothing?
Yeah, yeah. As we've said many times, terrorism doesn't happen for no reason.
Yeah.
There's always a material reason for extremist groups rising up. And if you're not going to resolve the underlying material tensions that exist between Palestinians and Israelis, then you're going to continue to get terrorist attacks. You can't bomb Hamas away, especially because Hamas leadership, again, isn't in Gaza. You can't bomb them out of existence. And even if you could, Hamas too comes right after that because you've just decimated an entire generation of people.
It's like the only thing that they're bombing out of existence right now in Gaza is the Palestinian civilians and also the Palestinian Health Ministry, which if you don't remember, the kind of every day they go through and update the casualty counts, which is now at about 13,300 as of, I think, yesterday. But that came after a days-long pause in the casualty report, which AP says is attributed to the health system's total collapse in northern Gaza, making it impossible to provide a detailed count.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we've been saying for a while now that the actual death toll is going to be higher than what they report because there's just, in the fog of war, and as buildings are collapsing around you, there's no way you can keep track of everyone that's trapped and has died because of attacks that, people didn't live to report about.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's bad.
Or just any person that an IDF soldier shoots on their campaign through conquering northern Gaza, which they've described themselves. Like, there are videos of multiple videos of Israeli soldiers going viral, like, oh, we just conquered a beach in North Gaza, woo, woohoo.
Yeah.
Or them dragging furniture out of destroyed homes and setting it up and just fucking chilling in the rubble of people's lives.
Yeah. I do wonder if, I don't know. I'm seeing all these protests in all these different countries, certainly in the United States as well, whether they're in D.C. or New York or other big cities in the U.S. And I feel like something's got to give in the Democratic Party at some point.
Yeah.
Especially if Joe Biden loses the upcoming election, which we've talked about as ad nauseum. But if the Democrats sustain major losses because of this, then I feel like something's got to move. And I wonder if AIPAC is just slowly going to become a Republican PAC, rather than a group that funds both liberal and conservative candidates.
I wouldn't even be surprised.
Yeah.
Because it's how do you fund both liberal and conservative candidates in general in the first place?
Well, it's because they both support Israel. That's why.
Exactly. That's the only thing that they care about. It's stupid.
I'm wondering if there's going to be a shift over time, kind of how the NRA used to fund both conservatives and Democrats that were pro-gun, but now they're just staunchly a Republican PAC at this point. I don't know. Maybe something will change. Maybe I'm coping a little bit, and the Democrats are never going to get away from their Zionist angles. But one can hope, right?
One can hope. And I guess while we're on the topic of terrorism, we can talk about some things that happened on the eve of Thanksgiving.
One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
That's exactly.
And if you think Gazans are the first ones to ever elect terrorists to office, I mean, see George Bush. American people. I mean, come on.
But anyway, speaking of more terrorism, on top of that, it's been no secret over the past couple weeks that as a result of everything going on in Gaza right now, right-wingers here in the U.S. of A. have been fiending for a terrorist attack on U.S. soil. Tell me they haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me they haven't. Fucking everyone I know on the right has just been going crazy about it. It's like the day of jihad. When I don't even know if someone from Hamas on social media said it or some right-winger just made it up and said, oh, look at this letter. Hamas is calling for a day of jihad across the globe that you don't go outside on Friday, October 14th or 12th or whatever the fuck it was. They've just been going nuts for it, only to stoke fears over the southern border.
Yeah, Republicans are yearning to be able to do the 9/11 Islamophobia trick again.
Yeah.
To get everyone to rally around some kind of military excursion that we can use to, I don't know, terrorize the Middle East.
Invade Mexico,
Ted
like
Cruz,
Nikki Haley says.
Ted Cruz and Nikki Haley, they probably wish that the Hamas attack was in the U.S. so we could justify doing literally anything.
Oh my God, I know. They wish they were Israel right now. He said, I wish I was in Netanyahu's cabinet just making these crazy decisions right now. But anyway, it seems for a brief moment last Wednesday, they lied about their prayers being answered. So some context. On Wednesday, on the Rainbow Bridge, which connects Niagara, New York to Niagara, Canada, near Niagara Falls, there was an explosion which quick investigation from the Buffalo FBI pointed out had nothing to do with a malicious terrorist attack. There was no bomb residue found, but rather some idiot driver was speeding and slammed into a concrete pillar, causing his car to blow up a little bit because he's going wicked fast. Got airborne, did some air time, and then slammed into a pillar. But that didn't stop right-wingers from hearing explosion and going nuts. Fox News immediately ran a story claiming it was a terror attack. Ted Cruz made a post on Twitter saying it was definitely a terrorist. Something like how there's a Buffalo cop or whatever the fuck. There's a New York cop that was on the scene that's being wheeled off to the hospital now after this terrorist attack. I don't know if the cop being injured part was true, but that's definitely not what happened. That's definitely not the framing that went on there. Kari Lake, future VP, said, quote, "This may have been an attempted terrorist attack along our northern border. If so, our worst fears are being realized. Joe Biden is inviting this kind of chaos into our country. It was only a matter of time before bad people took him up on his offer."
What the fuck?
Oh, yeah. And then Anna Paulina Luna from Florida wrote on Twitter, "We need to lock down the borders immediately. Full deportation efforts need to begin. The U.S. does not need to be the world hospitality suite any longer." It's important to mention that the guy who was driving the car that exploded on the Rainbow Bridge was going from New York to Canada. So if anything, oh my God.
We're going to lose a talking point soon where we're like, oh, they only talk about the southern border because now they just want to lock everything down.
No, I know. That's what blew me the most here. Is she mentioned the northern border. I thought they were just going to say a terrorist attack at the border because like that's the framing, right?
Yeah.
But I guess they can just start saying this. I guess they've caught on to us.
Yeah, I might be able to get behind it if we're deporting Canadians.
Hell yeah.
I might actually become a reactionary.
Hell yeah. Lock down the northern border, baby. Come on. just that
Open
one.
up the southern border.
Build a wall in Montana.
I'm saying.
Cut off the bridge connecting Detroit and Canada. I'm sick of it.
You'd cut off like half of all fentanyl coming into the country.
That's true.
So, I mean, why not, right?
Exactly. Come on now. It's just the better thing. But later Fox News did do, I don't know, a somewhat respectable thing, and they issued a retraction. But I feel like this just speaks to their overall jumpiness to do anything that they can to ramp up rhetoric on sort of like their issue. Like this is the issue for them after the GOP debates. There was like 3 solid hours over those debates that was just about invading Mexico.
Yeah, and I feel like with every news source, retractions get a lot less attention than the initial story ever does.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be like, I don't know, 10 times more people saw the U.S. is under attack story than we'll see the, actually, we were wrong, guys. It was just some dude driving too fast.
Well, yeah, because terrorism at the border gets more clicks than car crash. Like, it's just the fact of the matter. But oh my goodness, I just thought that was good, and I had to bring that up.
Man, they're itching for 9/11 too. God damn,
they went crazy. They went feral for it.
They want it.
Our borders are under attack, people.
Yeah,
I'm surprised no one claimed it was Hamas.
Oh God, I was just about to say.
I really wanted somebody to claim that it was Hamas.
I was just about to say someone had to have said like it's Hamas coming across the northern border. They flew in through Canada somehow.
Somebody's like uncle at Thanksgiving had to have said that. They had to have.
I hope so. Anyway, time to move on to our final news story today here.
That's right. One we missed last week a little bit.
We did miss it a little bit. It was overshadowed by larger events and, of course, the holiday pregame, which we simply had to do. We didn't really have a choice in the matter. But you may have noticed a couple of weeks ago, government did not shut down. Government stayed open.
Crazy.
Contrary to what we thought would happen.
Contrary to what I said.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, Biden signed a stopgap funding bill that keeps the government open for a little while longer as Congress continues to work on an actual budget. We had said that the government might shut down, but I think we had also guessed, like, if it does stay open and we're not getting a real budget, it's just going to be a continuing resolution as it was before. Yeah. So the stopgap continuing resolution included no cuts to really anything. It just
That's
kind of
good, at least.
It just kind of expands the time the government can be open. And it also did not include the previously discussed military funding for Israel, Ukraine, the border, and so on, because that's going to be a separate bill that's debated that may or may not pass. The interesting part about the stopgap bill, though, is, as I alluded to before, it's broken into 2 separate parts for some reason. resolution. First, it funds the Agriculture, Transportation, Housing and Urban Development, and Veterans Affairs departments through January 19th. And then second, it funds the Department of Defense through February 2nd. 2 weeks after the first part of the government runs out of money. I don't know what purpose this serves. The speaker and creepy father Mike Johnson argued that this prevents an omnibus package from being passed before the Christmas break, kind of in like the in a rush to get something passed.
But everybody wants to go home. Let's just pass some things. Little rush going on.
Why wouldn't they just do it after?
Yeah,
I don't see what stops an omnibus. I don't know what rationale is actually behind this, or if there is even like a logic to breaking it up into two parts.
Especially because I understand that usually there's a rush before the holidays when everybody wants to go home, but also there's going to be a rush before the government shuts down.
Yeah,
people are going to really want to just get things done and over with after they do this same song and dance 6 months later. Like
maybe he's keeping the DoD open for 2 extra weeks because he knows we're going to breeze past the January 19th shutdown date. And we got to keep funding going to Israel somehow.
Well, absolutely.
So we got to keep it open.
It's non-negotiable, unconditional funding. I was surprised this passed with that measure because when we talked about this, I think 2 weeks ago, before everything actually went through, that was the big development that happened that Chuck Schumer said absolutely no to. So
breaking it into two pieces.
Yeah, breaking it into two pieces. They did not want to do that. So I guess bro cracked.
Yeah. I mean, it was probably the classic thing where Republicans are like, "I will literally crash the car." You're just like, "Okay, fine, don't."
I will blow up the U.S. government, proverbially.
Yeah. Now you may be saying, "Hang on, wait a minute. A clean budget continuation with no cuts. Isn't this what Kevin got fired over?" And I would say, yeah. Actually, you're on the right track. That's exactly why he lost his job. This exact reason, a stopgap continuing resolution that was filed that extended us into November was the reason Kevin lost his job.
I bet he's fucking sitting there just crying, sitting there seething.
And Mike Johnson, I guess, just gets to do it. I'm guessing they're not going to kick him out because they don't want to go another 3 weeks without a speaker and looking awful as they did last time. And I don't even think there's the time on the calendar to even do that. But yeah, Mike just did the same thing Kevin did, and he got away with it.
No, but that's so sick.
Yeah,
that's actually so sick. They realized they're like, yeah, there's nothing we can do about these things getting passed with no cuts. Like we cannot garner the support for this, and they did all that for nothing.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So we got a continuing resolution. The government's not shutting down just yet, but as we say, maybe on like half of all of our episodes, maybe next time.
Next time, yeah.
We'll just kick the can, or we'll actually hit the button.
It's either maybe the government will shut down, or maybe the government just won't exist anymore if we default on our debts.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, maybe the entire global economy will stop.
Yeah.
That could happen too. Not this time though. This is a government shutdown.
Because these are things we can just kick the can down for.
Now, before we finish out this government budget talk, there's a specific story I want to zoom in on, and I think it's pretty important.
Okay.
So let's start off with a question. When you think of the Republican Party, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh shit, being racist.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
For me, it's usually like taking food out of the mouths of hungry children.
Oh, that's especially taking supplementary food out of women, children, and infants' mouths.
Yes, and that's exactly what we're talking about. So, right, Congress passed this stopgap budget bill, which originated in the Republican-led House to keep the government open until after the new year. But importantly, funding for WIC was missing.
Oh, it was WIC. Oh,
no. You nailed it. You clocked it.
Let's go.
WIC, as Gage just spoiled for you all, is a nutrition program for women, infants, and children. I can't believe you got that. I thought you had like pre-read.
No, I had no idea.
So WIC was established in 1972, and it provides today breastfeeding support and formula for nearly half of all babies born in the U.S. The program's already struggling financially because of inflation, and costs have risen on families. When I looked it up, according to I think the USDA, 6.3 million Americans participate in WIC, and that's about 39% of all kids in the U.S. benefit from WIC in some way.
It's a great program. Like it is explicitly to feed women, infants, and children. It's supplementary to regular SNAP benefits, right?
Yeah. If there was ever a welfare program that's important, if there was ever a welfare program to keep funded, it's this one. Yeah. It's the one that keeps kids full, right? But as I mentioned, additional WIC funding was left out of the stopgap funding bill, despite Biden asking for $1 billion extra to keep it funding, to keep the program running. And again, the stopgap bill was passed by the Republican House, and previously in the past couple of months, we've seen the GOP members of Congress attempt to cut WIC in several different bills. They haven't been successful, but it seems like they're going to try again. The USDA reported that they don't anticipate service level dips until after the new year, but without funding, because of the Republican Party, they just simply won't be able to give families the food that they need.
So it's like we've been through the same song and dance before. I think it was on the episode with Mikhail Goodman. We covered a bill out of some state legislator,
like Iowa or Indiana. Or something
it was
like that.
Iowa or Indiana. I remember they had an awful like format on their website when I read the bill. They just wanted to get rid of I think WIC and SNAP, and that's where we like delved into those programs. They're just good.
Yeah.
Just good things.
WIC, SNAP, and TANF are like the bedrock of our welfare programs in the U.S., and all the time Republicans try to cut them.
Food.
Or and even if we want to expand this to like state-by-state news, I remember we covered a story a couple of months ago where Republicans explicitly said that they want to remove the ability for states to do universal free school lunch.
Yeah.
They just want to, like, they literally, the Republican Party here, unambiguously, no interpretation needed, wants less kids to eat. That's it. Like, what? Because the typical argument is like, okay, don't be on welfare, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. These are children.
Well, you don't understand. Free lunch, that's not free. Free lunch is never actually free. Someone's paying for it.
Yeah, so I thought that was quite the insane story out of this stopgap bill that's kind of being looked over. But yeah, WIC funding was not included, and the USDA, Department of Agriculture, is like, "Ayo, we won't be able to fund this after the new year."
Oh my.
So hopefully we get that funding soon, because me personally, I enjoy when people aren't going hungry.
Yeah, me personally, especially, I don't know, women, infants, and children, kind of a vulnerable group when it comes to hunger, because this is for new mothers who need to, I don't know, foster a new... All the Republicans at the debate were like, oh yeah, they stole our flow.
They did.
And they said, we got to be pro-life for the whole life. I don't know about that one.
Yeah. Chris Christie, get in here. Talk to him.
Yeah, Chris Christie, come mediate this.
Yeah. And it's like, our welfare programs, especially those that like involve buying food, are already insufficient because there's so many limitations on what you can actually get, certain brands you can purchase from. But the fact that they want to just cut it off entirely, something they've attempted to do before, the Republicans, is just like it's no analysis needed. It's just evil, straight up evil.
And it's also like $1 billion.
Yeah,
for the federal government, dog.
Yeah, that
ain't shit.
Take one of the billions away from Israel. Give it to the kids.
Exactly. I don't know. Tax Elon Musk exactly $1 billion. I promise he don't need it. He does not need it. Let's raise taxes on the people who don't need these WIC benefits, and then we can get this going.
Yeah. In our opinion, social or government intervention in the economy, pretty good. It helps. It's a good thing. The U.S. has grown so powerful economically because of it, and we should keep doing it.
In our opinion, financially punishing people like Elon Musk, also good. Also good.
Yeah, publicly.
What do you need $44 billion for?
You don't need it. You can't spend it all in one place. You can't spend it at all.
Facts.
Before you die, it's not going to be gone. Anyways, that wraps up the news stories for this week. I hope you all enjoyed the episode, and don't feel too devoid of hope. Because, I was trying to think of something inspiring to say, but it's all bad.
Soon it might get better.
Maybe.
Soon things might get better.
Well, if we want to end on a hopeful note, maybe it's all bad. Maybe it all makes you feel sad. Maybe you're crying for the loss of life, both in the United States and in Gaza, etc. But sometimes we get a silly news story like Ted Cruz saying terrorism is happening.
Exactly. And it's really about taking those little moments of happiness from the abyss, just ripping them out and savoring them and appreciating them for what they are. Kind of like when you're a patron and you hear your name read at the end of the episode.
Well, exactly. Like that's one of the joys in life that you get to appreciate.
Exactly.
Or maybe being asked another way if you condemn Hamas. A bunch of different ways to ask that question. We get asked it all the time.
It's a good one, and always I do.
And quite frankly, I don't know how many more condemnations I got in me. I might be running out. I might be running out of yes, I condemn Hamas's. You know what I'm saying?
I might have to start saying silent on the issue.
Anyways, we got to give a special thanks to all the people that really condemn Hamas.
Yeah, time to give some brief little moments of joy to these special people, starting with Caden Kraut, Lord Tau the Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, 40% Spite, Dylan B., Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Mattias T., Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Kaz, Caleb Joy, Rich Toro, Tari, Gavin Mayer Maldonado, Hunter W., Fergalaki, Max Vezquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cuts, Gregory Isn't My Name, Veryuk, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfishin, Benneth Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Niche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's Boyfriend, Jonathan Cassis, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarlson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron and His Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Aiden Taylor, Corey Chambers, Sewer Snack, L.E.N., John Glover, Devin Hatchard, Retromondo, Meatball Minion, Emma the Dew Slayer,
Breezy B, Veronica, aka V, Raxon, Ash Smith, The Grotler, Magic Ian 95, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Three Crows in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, AK Gone, Aquana Dawn, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Ishi Teddy, Cammy, Reagan, Pagan Jester, Tylen Freeman, oh my god, I'm tripping, Steak Daddy, Tay Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C., Pab the Pab 69, Kayla Lowe, Anna Valenic, Eduardo Diaz, KCC, Say Yes to Wes, August, Natalie Valinsky, Particular Pickman, Sir Capalot, Jeff Signs, Howard the Duck, Brendan Is Egg, JR, Drew Batchilder, Froggy Gumdrop, Evan Malika, I hope I said it right that time. I know you DM'd us about it. Maybe I said it wrong again. Zen Doing Their Best, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, Naomi Valentine, Nikki Nine Lives, Sasha, MJ is Sharp, Michaela Muncie, hopefully I said that one right, also DM'd us about it. The Wallace 3000, Southwest Socialism, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon and condemning Hamas every time you're asked.
Have a great week.
We love you.